I consider myself pretty lucky to be just old enough to clearly recall the birth, rise, height, and unfortunately, the fall of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise. Like a lot of people around my age, my first moment of exposure to the series was the famous Pizza Hut demo disc, which contained playable samples of several games that would go on to be massive hits, including Final Fantasy VIII, Ape Escape, Cool Borders, and Crash Team Racing. But most importantly, it also featured the iconic warehouse demo of the first ever Tony Hawk game. That tiny taste of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater back in the late 90s was enough to completely enrapture almost any kid through its fun gameplay and catchy music, namely the track Superman by ska band Goldfinger, which would go on to be the defining anthem of the entire series. It's almost impossible for a late 20-something or older to hear that song and not picture the warehouse level. The series would go on to spawn numerous sequels and spin-offs, crossing over to multiple console generations to major success a lot of the time. Unfortunately, things didn't stay consistent forever, and the franchise slowly descended in popularity starting at about 2005, with the release of American Wasteland. Finally, the Tony Hawk franchise ended up coming to a close with Pro Skater 5 in 2015, which was, well, let's just say a lot of fans didn't want the series to go out on such a low note. With Activision's licensing deal with Mr. Hawk set to expire at the end of the same year, developer Robomoto ended up having to push out a product that was messy and rushed, and that's putting it as lightly as I can without crossing the boundary into straight up falsehoods. What followed was almost 5 years of inactivity, with Tony giving the periodic update of his intentions to continue the series without the publisher Activision. Fans of the older games made by Neversoft found comfort in Thug Pro, a fan-made game using the Underground 2 engine, and it was all they had to fall back on. Until earlier this year on May 12th, where Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was revealed to the world with resounding enthusiasm from fans who have been waiting for something since 2015. Best of all, it was being developed by Vicarious Visions, who have not only worked on the franchise in the past, but have proven that they're more than capable of handling remakes with huge expectations attached to them, as demonstrated by their work on the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. And now that I've played the game, I want to talk about it. When Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 first opens up, you're given a title screen that immediately blasts you with Goldfinger's Superman, which is quite possibly the biggest sign Vicarious Visions could give before you hit the gameplay that they know what they're doing and who their audience is. When you hit the main menu, you can select a pro to play as among many old and new faces, or create your own skater with the Simple Character Creator. Choices for how your character looks regarding their face and physique is unfortunately limited. In fact, you can't change their actual physique at all, just their face, hair, facial hair, and skin tone. On the flip side, clothes and skateboard customization is very plentiful, with some apparel offering a color picker for total control over your style. As you go through the many stages that were faithfully and beautifully created from their original games, you're tasked with multiple goals, such as collecting skate letters and items, performing specific tricks over specific gaps, and finding the iconic secret tapes. You also collect stat points to allocate into your character, whether they're a pro or your creation, so they can perform better and score higher than ever before. They'll stay in the air longer, spin faster, balance on grinds, lips, and manuals easier, go faster on flat ground, etc. As you accomplish stage goals, you'll also complete challenges that give you skate bucks to spend on the in-game store and experience points to increase your level. And there are challenges for damn near every goal or milestone you can think of, literally over 700. Some of the more difficult ones will prove to be fairly aggravating, especially to more casual players, but the rewards are abundant. Together, both skate bucks and increased levels will unlock access to things such as decks, grip tape, wheels, clothes, tattoos, and even items to place in your created skate park. There are also special animated decks for when you complete the hardest challenges. And all of that is on top of the usual unlockables the series is known for, like characters, skate videos, bonus stages, and cheats and mods that cover anywhere from double score to no more bails to aesthetic filter changes like black and white or inverted colors. You're given a constant stream of rewards and cosmetics as you play, offering more incentive to keep going and perform better, thus preventing the game from being only a 1 or 2 session experience for most, as it likely would have ended up if it were truly a 1-to-1 remake with no changes. Visually, this game is the most beautiful the series has ever been. Though it's not a particularly breathtaking game in the grand scheme of things, the character models are quite detailed, and the pros are unmistakably recognizable. The created character faces are also fairly distinctive. As one would hope, even skateboard decks, grip tape, trucks, and wheels have an impressive amount of quality to them. The environmental visuals are also very good, with every stage standing out with their own atmosphere and style in a way that the original versions just couldn't do with its limited technology. Some of the stages that are primarily set outdoors and under the open sky look particularly nice. Some areas have even received fitting aesthetic overhauls in some cases, such as the mall, which has been redesigned to look totally abandoned and torn up, as many malls have become in the 20 years since the release of the first game. However, it still maintains many of the same obstacle placements, so you're still able to pull off some of these same lines you could before, and this goes for pretty much all the other stages too. They're all lovingly rebuilt from the ground up, clearly by people who know and respect the source material. If there's one thing about visuals I've noticed that I might complain about, it's the lack of blood when you bail. I know it's a tiny detail that matters little at the end of the day, but the spatters of blood that the characters would spray when slamming against the ground in older games made bails feel so much more visceral, so it's a bit of a shame to see that this game lacks them. The gameplay is the true marvel of this title, as one would expect. Vicarious Visions made the fantastic decision of veering away from a 100% beat-for-beat remake in this aspect, and instead opted to bring back the feel and physics of the PlayStation 2 and Xbox era titles, which many consider to be the golden age of this franchise, including me. There's many tricks here that didn't exist until later games, but using their good judgment they decided to take some key mechanics and incorporate them so this new remake didn't feel dated in all the wrong ways. There's reverts to link together vert tricks into manuals upon landing, transfers of all kinds so you can cover more ground and go between pipes and ramps, wall plants so you can bounce off of a surface instead of slamming into it and stopping your combo, and more, so players who are most familiar with later Tony Hawk games won't feel like they're forced to step back into a time of inferior gameplay that offered less options. The developers have taken the entire series into consideration when remaking only the first two games, and it is extremely obvious within the first several minutes of starting that their forward-thinking approach will dramatically improve the experience. The gameplay feels exactly as it did during the very peak of the series, missing only a few things, like the spacewalk, which helped you continue forward if you stalled while manualing. It would have been nice to have in this game, as you lose an insane amount of momentum when manualing, even when you start at high speed. The game also doesn't incorporate the ability to get off your board and walk around on foot as you could in the Underground titles, which isn't a problem as it's not necessary here to begin with really, but admittedly it would have come in handy in some cases, like searching for those alien plushies. As with previous games, you can totally customize your special tricks, including giving them their own inputs, allowing you to further streamline your performance in a way that suits how you play. The controls are snappy and reliable, allowing even the busiest, most complex lines to be executed with a high amount of actions per minute. You can do insane combos where you don't stop moving your fingers for even a fraction of a second, and the game will keep up, allowing a high skill ceiling for those who want to dominate the leaderboards. If you have it in you to attempt a 50 or even 100 million point combo, the game will accommodate. Speaking of leaderboards, multiplayer options are present for both drop-in, drop-out online and local play, so someone sitting right next to you can join in. Yet another feature that many games seem to have left in the past, but Vicarious Visions see the value of. Game modes that you can participate in with others include Graffiti, Trick Attack, Score Challenge, Tag, Combo Challenge, Combo Mambo, Horse, and just plain old Free Skate. Unfortunately, online multiplayer doesn't seem to offer the ability to simply create a free skate lobby where a host controls games, like past Tony Hawk titles did. Instead, you're thrust into automatic games one after another with periodic stage changes with match-made players who come and go as they please. It would be nice to be able to make lobbies so you can just hang out with friends and endless free skate if you desired, because the general lack of control for multiplayer that isn't local is a bit disappointing. Thankfully, Vicarious Visions has gone out of their way to mention that private lobbies will become available in a future update, but as of right now, it's not an option. It would add a lot of longevity to the game's online lifespan to just be a social hub, so to speak, like real-life skate parks are. It's still a good place to go for those who are junkies for competition, but it's a bit weird to think that Underground 1 and 2 back on the PS2 offered a better day one online experience than this. Skate park creation makes a return, and it serves up a wide variety of tools, parts, and obstacles to throw together so you can make your dream stage. You're given several backdrops to place your park in, then you can let loose with many different styles of quarter pipes, rails, ramps, and environmental pieces. There's also a very useful smart tool category that lets you mold walls, rails, ramps, and more in any shape, form, length, or slope you desire. The possibilities are practically endless. You can stay down to earth and keep your parks realistic, or make them insane works of postmodern art. It's an overall great mode that allows you to put your wildest skate park fantasies out there, but it doesn't come without a couple quirks. Unfortunately, you can't create goals for your park anymore, nor do you seem able to make custom gaps for players to utilize in combos, and collision bugs sometimes rear their ugly head, causing you to get stuck in your own pieces. The mode allows you to put down overlapping parts, which can be helpful when you're limited on room, but it sometimes interferes with the ability to seamlessly grind atop the lip of quarter pipes and such, even if they look perfectly connected visually. It's a minor annoyance that most people probably won't run into, but want to potentially keep in mind depending on how you're building your park. And finally, there's the soundtrack. One of the biggest marketing points of the game when it was announced was the returning track list featuring many songs that players of the original games knew and loved. Almost every track from Pro Skater 1 and 2 make a return, with only 3 being left out due to licensing issues. Otherwise, it's an almost totally complete recreation of the old playlists, with the addition of many new tracks, 37 to be exact. In total, the new soundtrack for the game boasts a massive 59 songs across many genres, including ska, punk, hip-hop, rock, and dance. It's a diverse set of cuts that will appeal to players both old and new, and if there are any songs you're not particularly fond of, the game even offers the option to disable them, so they'll be skipped entirely and you can just listen to your favorites. Sadly, tracks that feature adult language have been censored, likely to ensure that the game maintains a T rating. So certain songs, such as Guerrilla Radio by the iconic Rage Against the Machine, lose a bit of their punch, but you'll likely be too busy busting combos to truly notice. Overall, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is a prime example of a remake done right, with heart, made by people who sincerely care. Even in the middle of a year with a ton of remakes, some of which are also good, this game still stands out as one of the most undeniably competent. Vicarious Visions used their great judgment to not make a measly one-to-one recreation that would have felt dated, and instead combined the stages of Pro Skater 1 and 2 with the feel of Underground 1 and 2, and gave it all a fresh, beautiful coat of paint that lives up to the graphical standards of today. Would I go so far as to say it's the most perfect Tony Hawk's Pro Skater experience ever made? Not necessarily, due to the lack of a few tiny quality of life mechanics, and especially the lack of online free skate lobbies on day one. But it is damn close, and has a sincere claim to the privilege of standing with the best in the series. Fans have every right to rejoice that the franchise no longer has to end on the painfully subpar Pro Skater 5, and can instead continue on with the spirit of what made it so popular to begin with, packaged in a new, modern style. Regarding the future of this title, I don't know if I would put money on whether a remake of Pro Skater 3 and 4 content would be DLC for this game or a new game entirely. We'll have to wait and see on that front. One thing's for sure though, I am crossing my fingers and praying that Underground eventually gets the same treatment. It was a game that defined my early teenage years, and I would shed tears of joy if it was remade with this level of love and skill. Tony and Vicarious Visions will probably never see this video, but I am begging that they remake Underground. Seriously. This concludes my review for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I highly recommend it to anyone and everyone who's even mildly interested in a fun skateboarding game. It's a good time, no question. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.